Do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. In today's Tarot Tuesday, we will be looking at the most esoteric card in tarot, the Hanged Man. I think it's significant to point out that the attributes and the position is the same across all the decks. This is A212, making it the 13th major arcana. The color is blue, the element is water, relating to west, fall, and twilight. The astrological influence is Neptune. The esoteric title is the spirit of the mighty waters. The intelligence is the stable intelligence. The Hebrew letter is Mem, meaning water, given a value of 40. On the Tree of Life, it occupies the paths between Geburah and Hod, giving it a Kabbalistic title, the severity of splendor. The numerology is 3, relating to initial achievement of goals, growth, creativity, and abundance. The title is the same across the decks, except for the Grand Attila and Attila 3, which title it as Prudence. And the Sola Busca uses the Italian word for carbon, carbone, although it is usually still titled the Hanged Man in English. I would like to point out some of the differences in the symbolism across the decks. In the Thoth deck, there are no gallows, removing the concept of suffering. Instead, he is bound by a serpent to the Ankh of Immortality. By his left leg, his right leg crosses in front and points west. The shape of his body suggests a cross atop a downward-facing triangle, in which his head is the center. This is a symbol for light entering darkness, the earthly entering the divine. To me, this is one card where Crowley refrained from clearly articulating the veiled meaning, but he did symbolize it more clearly, in my opinion. In the Rider-Waite deck, the right leg is bound, the left leg is crossed, and points east. In the Soprafina, the left leg is bound, and the legs are not crossed, as in the Giovanni Vecchetti, where the legs are bound together and also not crossed. In the 1JJ Swiss, the right leg is bound, the left leg crosses behind, and points nowhere, as it is not visible. In the Grand Attila, there is a woman standing upright, unbound, with the caduceus of Hermes in her left hand, appearing to be about to step on a snake. It is titled Prudence, and this card utterly lacks the veiled symbolism and meaning of the other decks, aside from the Grand Attila 3 and the Sola Busca, which also lack the symbolism. In the Attila 3, also titled Prudence, is an unbound woman upright, holding a book in her right hand and a mirror with a serpent in her left. In the Sola Busca, we have an unbound upright man with a torch in his right hand and a staff in his left. The staff points downward, touching the earth, and he is under a crescent moon. In the Marcels, the man is bound by the left leg with his right leg crossed behind and pointing west. I will also point out that often the west is related to the unconscious, whereas the east is related to the conscious. Before reading from Serlo, I'm going to read a little bit from A.E. Thierens. This 12th sign of house, closing the cycle of the zodiac, means loss to the outer world. Solution, handing over the results of one cycle to the following one, whence comes the meaning of treachery in common astrology. This house contains the things which we have not yet mastered, and those whom we have failed to understand, or who have failed to understand us. So either this remains for the next cycle, or it will tempt us to waste our last forces. In the eyes of the world, it is the sign of waste, spoil, mishap. Viewed from the other side, it is the sign of the golem, in which the outer world loses its importance or even reality, and the consciousness is open to inner truth. This is the reversing of consciousness, which makes things change their significance in such a way they appear to turn upside down. The world is now viewed from the other side, and this is the significance of the Hanged Man. It is also the sign of Judas, who, as far as the outer world is able to judge, did not understand the significance of Jesus and handed him over to his enemies, the most mysterious of the disciples and apparently the fiend within the circle. What, however, is his treason or despair when viewed from the other side? Is it an act of perversion, the result of human nature being too weak to carry on in this world the heavy load of spiritual revelation, or even a mystic message, which till now has never been understood and will never be understood by the profane world? However this may be, we may feel pretty sure that none of the others who remained in this world to preach the gospel understood, or let us say rather underwent the message like Judas, who hanged himself. Well may W say, it is a card of profound significance, but all the significance is veiled. Perhaps we might even add, it is the symbol of the veil itself, and of everything that is and remains veiled in this world, and in divination, to the current, ad hoc. Under the title Hangman, Serlo writes, this figure has a profound and complex symbolism. It is Enigma number 12 of the tarot pack of cards, but its fundamental significance has wider implications. Fraser noted that primitive man endeavors to keep his deities alive by isolating them between heaven and earth, thereby placing them in a position which is immune to ordinary influences, especially terrestrial ones. This and every other kind of suspension in space implies then a mystical isolation which is doubtless related to the idea of levitation and to dream flight. On the other hand, the inverted position is in itself a symbol of purification because it inverts analogically the natural terrestrial order. Both the legend of the hangman as a figure endowed with magic powers and the Odin myth belong to this symbolic system. Of Odin it was said that he had sacrificed himself by hanging. The relevant verses of the Havamal read, I know that I have been hanging from the stormy tree for 9 consecutive nights, wounded by the spear as an offering to Odin, myself offered to myself. Similar sacrifices are part of normal cult practices in many parts of the world. Jung explains this symbolism in purely psychological terms, saying that the hanging has an unmistakable symbolic value, since swinging, hanging, and suffering as one swings is the symbol of unfulfilled longing or tense expectations. The tarot card mentioned above depicts a figure like the minstrel hanging by one foot from a rope tied to a crossbar supported by 2 leafless trees. The interpretation is that the hangman does not live the ordinary life of this earth, but instead lives in a dream of mystical idealism. The strange gallows from which he hangs is yellow in color to indicate it consists of concentrated light, i.e., concentrated thought. Thus it is said that the hangman hangs from his own doctrine, to which he is attached to such an extent that his entire being hangs upon it. The 2 trees between which he hangs are related, like anything that is connected with the numerical symbolism of 2, to the Boaz and Yakin pillars of the Kabbalah. They are colored green tending to blue, natural or terrestrial nature tending towards heaven. The hangman's clothing is red and white, these being the mystical colors of the 2-headed eagle of the alchemists. His arms are tied together and hold half-open bags out of which gold coins are tumbling, this being an allegory of the spiritual treasures to be found in the being who performs this self-sacrifice. According to Worth, the mythological hero closest to this symbolic character is Perseus, the personification of thought and action, who in his flight overcame the forces of evil in order to free Andromeda, who symbolizes the soul chained to the dull rock of matter rising from the waves of the primeval ocean. In the positive sense, number 12 of the tarot pack stands for mysticism, sacrifice, self-denial, conscience. In the negative sense, it denotes a utopian dream world. And that concludes our brief exploration of the symbolism of the hangman. Thanks for watching. Love is the law. Love under will.